All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to this ABLE United webinar titled Supplemental Security Income and ABLE Accounts. I want to thank you for taking time this afternoon to attend. My name is John Finch. I am the Director of Florida's ABLE program, ABLE United. ABLE United is administratively housed under the Florida Prepaid College Board. The Florida Prepaid College Board oversees the Stanley G. Tate Florida Prepaid College Program, the Florida 529 Savings Program, and the Florida Prepaid College Foundation for the state of Florida. Today, I am joined by Elizabeth Baez-Beatty from the Social Security Administration, who is a public affairs specialist based in the Jacksonville area. We are privileged to have Elizabeth with us today, and I thank her for doing the heavy lifting and explaining Social Security and how it works with ABLE accounts. One important note, this webinar is for informational and educational purposes only, and should not be used for, or considered as financial, legal, or tax advice. You have joined this webinar in listen-only mode, which means you are muted. In order to ask questions, please use the Questions Ask box found on the GoToWebinar panel. There will be some designated time at the end to answer your questions. We most likely won't have enough time to answer everybody's question, but we'll follow up with each of you individually to answer any questions if we did not answer them during the webinar. Also, you will notice above the question panel, there is a list of handouts you can download. Today's handouts include our program description and participation agreement for ABLE United, as well as a PDF version of this presentation. The goal of today's webinar is to provide everybody with a quick overview of the ABLE Act and ABLE United specifics. If this is your first time hearing about ABLE, I encourage you to visit our website, www.ableunited.com, to learn more about ABLE United or to open an ABLE United account. You can also view testimonials from account holders, see updated news on ABLE, and find previously recorded webinars. Elizabeth will speak on the distinctions between the Social Security Administration, or SSA, disability programs. She will also highlight program rules for ABLE account holders who receive supplemental security income. I will cover on what states will be reporting to SSA, and finally the next steps SSA will take in implementing and collecting ABLE account data. Before we move forward, let me take a quick poll to see how familiar individuals are with ABLE United. So you can please take a moment to answer that quick poll. And this allows us to have a better understanding of who is attending as well as the familiarity of ABLE accounts. This data will be used to help us in determining what webinars to bring individuals next. Give it a couple more seconds, allow everybody an opportunity to answer the poll. Wonderful. Thank you all for participating in that poll. So what is ABLE? ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. The Stephen Beck Jr. ABLE Act was enacted in December of 2014 and encourages individuals with disabilities to save after-tax dollars to help support health, independence, and a quality of life. It added a new section to the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529A, and enjoins the same tax benefits 529 college savings plans offer with some additional unique benefits specifically for individuals with disabilities. In July of 2015, Florida created Florida ABLE Inc., a not-for-profit and direct support organization of the Florida Prepaid College Board, and charged them to create and administer Florida's ABLE program, which is called ABLE United. ABLE United launched July 1 of 2016. Today, over 1,300 Floridians have opened an ABLE United account. ABLE accounts are tax-free savings and investment accounts. They're established by a designated beneficiary to support disability expenses. A designated beneficiary is an eligible individual who owns the account. One of the key advantages of this account is it allows individuals to maintain eligibility for needs and disability-based government benefits, such as Medicaid and SSI. There are 3 eligibility requirements for ABLE United. First, the individual with a disability must be a Florida resident. We are Florida's qualified ABLE program, and at this time have decided to only allow Florida residents at time of application to enroll, as we are funded by Florida taxpayers. If you are listening and you, your loved one, or the individual you are assisting has a disability does not currently reside in Florida, you can visit the ABLE National Resource Center, www.ablenrc.org, to find a detailed list of other ABLE programs. The next 2 requirements are true for all ABLE programs as prescribed by law. First, the individual has to have a qualifying disability. The qualifying disability means an individual who is eligible for supplemental security income based on disability or blindness that began before age 26, or is entitled to disability insurance benefits, childhood disability benefits, or disabled widow or widower's benefits based on disability or blindness that began before age 26. Elizabeth will go into more detail on both of these programs. If neither of these apply to you, someone who has certified or whose parent or guardian has certified that he or she has a medically determinable impairment meeting statutory specified criteria, or is blind and the disability or blindness occurred before age 26. Additionally, this disability is expected to last at least 12 months. The Treasury Department has concluded that a certification under penalties of perjury that the individual has a signed physician's diagnosis, and the signed diagnosis will be retained and provided to ABLE or the IRS upon request. This certification under the penalties of perjury is adequate to satisfy the disability requirement. The last requirement that's true for all programs is that the diagnosis had to occur prior to age 26. It doesn't matter the age of the individual currently, only that the disability was diagnosed prior to age 26. We have individuals that have accounts in ABLE United as young as 9 months old, all the way up to 84 years old. You can also visit our website, ableunited.com, for a short eligibility wizard that can help determine your eligibility. Now let's look at some more detailed specifics on how to open an ABLE United account. Enrollment can be done online on our website, ableunited.com. It takes on average 15 minutes to set up. There are no documents to upload. When you open an account, you would need to enter some identifying information, categorize the type of disability, select your basis of eligibility, and finally, your investment options. If another individual is authorized to open the account on your behalf, such as a parent, legal guardian, or someone who has a power of attorney over an individual's finances, or more specifically for ABLE accounts, they will need to enter their information as well. Individuals currently not receiving supplemental security income or the various Social Security disability products must self-certify. We will require you to enter the date of diagnosis as well as some physician contact information. After an account is open, an individual, their friends and family, or even an organization can contribute to their ABLE account. You contribute electronically through ACH or by check. Up to $14,000 annually can be contributed to this account from all sources. So for example, if you put $5,000 of your own funds in your ABLE account and mom contributed an additional $5,000, the most that can go in this account for the rest of the calendar year is $4,000 for a total of $14,000 per calendar year. When enrolling, you need to set up how you would like to grow your funds. ABLE United provides 7 investment options to meet the needs of most investors. We have 3 pre-designed portfolios, a conservative, moderate, and growth option. Also, we have underlying fund options that individuals can create their own portfolio. A money market account, a U.S. stock and U.S. bond option managed by Vanguard, and an international stock option managed by BlackRock. Individuals can invest in one or all of these options based on their risk tolerance. Also, you can change how you want incoming funds to be invested at any time. Finally, how do you get funds out of the ABLE United account? You can withdraw the funds at any time and for any reason via either ACH transfer to a checking or savings account, or you can request a check to be cut to either the individual or to any third party. Generally, funds in or withdrawn from an ABLE account for qualified disability expenses, with some expectations or exceptions to those receiving SSI, will not negatively impact benefits. Elizabeth will talk more about those. But what is considered a qualified disability expense? Qualified disability expenses are expenses that relate to the beneficiary's disability and helps them maintain or improve their health, independence, or quality of life. In other words, to help them achieve a better life experience. Some of these examples on the screen you see are health, housing, education, employment training and support, assistive technology and transportation. Even basic living expenses are included, such as food. The Treasurer stated that these expenses are to be construed broadly. Elizabeth will talk more about some additional rules for those individuals with ABLE United accounts who receive SSI. Once again, this was a quick highlight of ABLE accounts and some ABLE United specifics. For more information, please visit our website. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Elizabeth to discuss the differences between the various Social Security Administration programs and SSI rules when it comes to ABLE accounts. Elizabeth?
Thank you, John. So today we're going to begin with the two programs for disability benefits through the Social Security Administration. We will begin with the Social Security Disability Insurance Benefit. This benefit is a monthly cash benefit paid on the 3rd of the month or on a Wednesday. The benefit is paid based on working and a finding of disabled through Social Security. This benefit can pay cash benefits to a spouse, ex-spouse, widow or widower, minor children, and disabled adult children. The next program we're going to talk about is Title 16, Supplemental Security Income. This benefit is a monthly cash benefit for needy, blind, or disabled individuals. We also include aged individuals for individuals that are at or over the age of 65. Payments are made to both children and adults. Supplemental Security Income is a means-tested benefit. Social Security looks at income and resources to determine the eligibility. No insured status is required, meaning that we're not looking at work. There's no requirement of quarters earned. For individuals under the age of 65, a finding of disabled is required. So the impact of ABLE accounts for supplemental security income, since it's a means-tested entitlement, ABLE accounts and account balances exceeding $100,000 and distributions are considered in determining eligibility. For Title II or Social Security Disability Insurance beneficiaries, there's no impact on eligibility. Social Security's Program Operations Manual System is the primary source of information used by Social Security employees to process claims for Social Security benefits. Social Security will look at the public version. On this website, the public version is available. John's assisting me with that. But if you would like to view it on your own, it is available at www.socialsecurity.gov. Today, we're going to look at SI 01130 6.740, Achieving a Better Life Experience, or ABLE. John covered qualified disability expenses. I'll begin with the qualified disability expenses for housing. Housing expenses for ABLE are the same for in-kind support and maintenance purposes, with the exception of food. Approved qualified housing expenses include mortgage, property insurance, property tax, rent, heating fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, and garbage removal. In the next portion, we'll discuss when to exclude ABLE account contributions, bounces, earnings, and distributions. We will begin with excluded contributions. Social Security will exclude contributions to an ABLE account from the income of the designated beneficiary. An example of this would include rollovers from a family member's ABLE account to an SSI recipient who also has an ABLE account. Social Security will not deduct contributions from countable income for the person making the contribution. Using your income to contribute to an ABLE account does not mean that income is not countable for SSI purposes. An example of this, a recipient has ABLE contributions deducted directly from their paycheck and deposited into their ABLE account. The entire paycheck is counted for wages and taking into consideration wages earned for the SSI benefit. Excluded ABLE account earnings, Social Security will exclude any earnings on an ABLE account received from the income of the designated beneficiary. Examples of excluded income include accrued interest and earned dividends. Social Security excludes up to a $100,000 balance of the ABLE account from the countable resources for the beneficiary. Social Security does not count ABLE account distributions as income as long as they are used for a qualified disability expense, including non-housing and housing expenses. Social Security will exclude retained distributions for non-housing qualified disability expenses beyond the month if the designated beneficiary maintains, makes contributions, or receives contributions from the ABLE account, the distribution is unspent, the distribution can be identified, and the designated beneficiary still intends to use it. An example of an excluded distribution, Eric takes a distribution of $500 from his ABLE account in June of 2016 to pay for health-related qualified disability expense. His health-related expense is not due until September, so Eric deposits the distribution into his checking account in June. The distribution is not income in June. Eric maintains his ABLE account at all relevant times, and the distribution is both unspent and identifiable until Eric pays his health-related expenses in September. Social Security, therefore, excludes the $500 from Eric's countable resources in July, August, and September. An example of an excluded qualified disability expense, Fred takes a distribution of $1,500 from his ABLE account in September of 2016 to buy a qualified disability expense, a wheelchair. The wheelchair is an excluded resource in October and continuing because it is an individual's personal property required for a medical condition. Social Security will count ABLE account balances over $100,000 as an accountable resource. A special rule applies when the balance of an SSI recipient exceeds the $100,000 limit of excluded resources, either alone or with other resources. When the beneficiary's SSI benefit is suspended, Medicaid will continue until the entitlement is terminated. An SSI record will not be terminated until either of the following apply. The record stays in suspense for 12 continuous months or disability terminates. Since yearly contributions are capped, exceeding the limit of $100,000 should not be an issue for a few years. The next is an example of excess resources. Paul is the designated beneficiary of an ABLE account with a balance of $101,000 on the first of the month. Paul's only other countable resource is a checking account with a balance of $1,500. Paul's countable resources are $2,500 and therefore exceed the SSI resource limit. However, since Paul's ABLE account balance is causing him to exceed the resource limit, we suspend Paul's SSI eligibility and stop his cash benefits, but he retains the eligibility for Medicaid. The special suspension rule does not apply when an ABLE account balance exceeds the resource limit. The beneficiary has other resources other than the ABLE account that alone would make the beneficiary ineligible for SSI payments. So for an individual, the resource limit is $2,000. For a married couple, it's $3,000. The next example is a combination of resources. Christine is the designated beneficiary of an ABLE account with a balance of $101 on the first of the month. Christine's only other countable resource is a checking account with a balance of $3,000. Christine's countable resources are $4,000 and therefore exceed the SSI resource limit. However, because her ABLE account balance is not the cause of her excess resources, the special rule does not apply, and Christine is not eligible for SSI because her excess resources. We suspend Christine's SSI benefit using the payment status of N04, excessive resources, and her Medicaid benefit stop. Social Security will count a distribution for housing-related qualified disability expenses or for an expense that is not a qualified disability expense as a resource if the distribution is retained after the month of distribution. An example, Amy takes a distribution of $500 from her ABLE account in May to pay her rent for June. She deposits the $500 into her checking account in May, withdraws $500 in cash on June 3rd, and pays her landlord. This distribution is a house-related qualified disability expense and part of her checking account balance June 1st, which makes it a countable resource for the month of June. Social Security will count a retained excluded distribution for a non-housing qualified disability expense if the individual uses the retained distribution for a non-qualified expense or uses it for a housing-related qualified disability expense. The retained distribution will be counted as a resource in the month the money was spent. An example, a previously excluded distribution. Sam takes a distribution of $25,000 from his ABLE account to modify a specially equipped van in May. He pays a $10,000 deposit. While waiting for delivery of the van, Sam takes a trip to a local casino in July where he loses $1,000 of his ABLE distribution gambling. The $1,000 lost gambling is a countable resource in July. The other $14,000 Sam retains is an excluded resource. An example of a previously excluded distribution, a housing qualified disability expense. In June, Jennifer takes a $7,000 distribution from her ABLE account to pay her college tuition, a qualified disability expense. Her tuition payment is due in September. However, she has to make a $750 advanced rent payment to her landlord for her college apartment in August. She uses some of the distribution she took in June to make the rent payment, a housing-related qualified disability expense. The $750 is a countable resource in August. We exclude the remaining $6,250 of the retained distribution. The next example will include an example of change of intent for use of funds. In June, Jennifer takes a $7,000 distribution from her ABLE account to pay her college tuition. Her tuition payment is due in September. In August, Jennifer gets a job offer and decides not to return to school. Since she no longer intends to use it for tuition, the $7,000 becomes a countable resource in September unless Jennifer redesignates it for another qualified disability expense or returns the funds to her ABLE account prior to September. In order for Social Security to verify, document, and record ABLE account balances, the following must be reported: the name of the designated beneficiary, state ABLE program administering the account, name of person with signature authority, this may be the same as the beneficiary, unique account number for the ABLE account, the account open date, and the first of the month account balance. For ABLE accounts, we urge to keep all documentation for disbursements, purchases, and retained distributions in accordance with IRS guidelines. Retaining this information with accordance of IRS guidelines will ensure that all other agencies will be provided with the required proof to maintain the ABLE account. John, I'm sending it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth, for giving us a great explanation and where people can find additional resources on individuals receiving SSI and have ABLE accounts. Part of the requirement that states must follow by federal law is that all ABLE programs are required to submit data to the Social Security Administration on a monthly basis. SSA has reached out to all the various programs and have assigned agreements with them to start receiving data in October, so next month. SSA will use this data reported by the state to verify that the SSI recipients, if necessary, they will reach back out to the local Social Security offices about individuals to request additional information. So for example, SSI recipients, they're going to look at resource balances and if necessary, determine periods of suspension. For those receiving other Social Security benefits, they're not going to look at this data at all. It will be, from my understanding, purged, as well as individuals that are self-certifying. So really, Social Security Administration is only interested in looking at, on a monthly basis, individuals who have SSI and an ABLE account to see how their ABLE accounts, if there's funds being withdrawn from it, to make sure that those expenditures are being used for qualified disability expenses. Social Security Administration is also drafting some additional public-facing information, a public ABLE web page. They will also have some frequently asked questions, Today we went over that PALMS manual and the resources of where you can find that, and those will be updated by Social Security Administration as needed. We covered a lot of information today on supplemental security income and ABLE accounts. We wanted to highlight 3 key takeaways from today's presentation. Certain individuals with severe disabilities that were diagnosed before age 26 who receive or may receive in the future SSI can now save over $2,000 by establishing and putting excess funds in an ABLE account. So funds in an ABLE account allow you to save and remain SSI eligible. Number 2, if you are receiving SSI and open an ABLE account, notify the Social Security Administration and understand the policies surrounding ABLE accounts for SSI recipients. And finally, as Elizabeth mentioned, keep documentation on withdrawals and expenditures, not just for SSA, but more importantly for the IRS. At this time, we're going to open up and allow individuals to ask questions. Once again, you can use the questions ask bar. You can put your questions in there and we will answer as many as we can. Okay, this question is from an individual asking that they have an individual who has an ABLE accounts as well as SSI, and that they're putting funds in it, and as the funds grow, what happens to their account once it reaches over $102,000? Does that mean they will neither be eligible for SSI nor Medicaid? During Elizabeth's presentation, what would happen is if it's the ABLE account that's causing you to go over your resource limit, then your SSI check or that monthly benefit will be suspended, but you'll still remain eligible for Medicaid. So as long as your ABLE account's causing you to go over that $2,000 resource. And once again, you can go back to that policy and read the couple of examples they gave on that. Are there any additional questions from the crowd? One of the questions we often get is, does having an ABLE account require me to file taxes? Depends. Once again, I'm not a tax attorney. We advise you to talk to those individuals. But you will receive a 5498 QA that basically documents ABLE contributions, rollover contributions, what's in the account, the basis of your eligibility. Also, there will be a 1099 QA that's going to show the withdrawal amount of any funds withdrawn from your ABLE account along with earnings. And the only time you would need to report is if you had earnings and had withdrawals that were for non-qualified disability expenses. Then those withdrawals, just the earnings portion of withdrawals, could be subject to tax. Once again, I would recommend talking to a tax attorney. Here's a question. Can a representative payee set up the account for a competent individual who cannot, or an incompetent individual who cannot set up the account by themselves? Currently, federal law states that an individual has to be a parent, a legal guardian, or somebody with a power of attorney over their finances. I know that Social Security is looking at ways to expand it to allow representative payees. What we recommend is usually have the individual open the account. You can help them in that process, but they would have to be the administrator on the account. Elizabeth, if you can hear me, I have a question for you. Do countable resources include assets in a special needs trust for the individual with a disability?
As long as the special needs trust meets all of Social Security's guidelines, that special needs trust would be excluded, just as it is now. But it does have to meet. So if there's considerations for opening a special needs trust, before depositing funds into that trust, bring the agreement in to Social Security, allow us to send it up to the region. We have designated staff that's what they do on a daily basis, is they review the medical trust to ensure that it meets Social Security guidelines and policy.
Great, thank you. I have another question for you regarding an individual that they live in a group home. They have a small 5-hour part-time job that they do weekly. They only receive SSI. What can she spend her earnings from that job on? Can she spend money on food and housing with that money, or does she have to use it for other things?
If you're working and earning money outside of pulling distributions from the ABLE account, you can use that money for food, clothing, shelter, and personal need items. We don't restrict on what you're allowed to use it on. We do, however, restrict how much you can retain. So if you're unmarried, the resource limit in all accounts, excluding an ABLE account, would be $2,000. So if you're saving up to make a purchase, you would need to report to us if your savings went over the $2,000 if you're single, or $3,000 if you're a married individual, so that we can make sure that we are paying the correct benefit entitled to you. Also, if you're working, you also want to make sure that you're reporting your wages to Social Security, as wages could affect your monthly SSI payment. So you want to make sure that you're reporting that timely. I usually say within the first 2 weeks of the following month you want to report those wages. There may not be an offset depending upon how much you're making an hour, but you do want to make sure that you're reporting those wages.
Great, Elizabeth. That's a wonderful question. I have a question here. I'll take a stab at it. What if you have a married couple with a child that has a disability? They have over $3,000 in resources not in an ABLE account. Would the child be able to receive SSI cash benefits but keep Medicaid? I think in that situation it depends on the age of the child. If it's still under the parents, I believe Social Security takes into consideration parents' income and assets. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I think there's a lot of requirements, but yeah, I would reach out to Social Security to talk about your unique situation. Someone had a question about the age of diagnosis. They're quite older, and they're 42 years old. They were receiving SSI, but they were approved 5 years ago. Diagnosis is a severe disability. Would they be qualified to open the account? So it depends on when the diagnosis happened. If it happened prior to 26, that's the main part. The other part, the severity, that may or may not happen at that age. So as long as it was diagnosed before age 26, and then the severity of it would qualify you on that. So I think that's a yes. You'd be able to open an ABLE account. Question on the source of the contribution, is that required? For our program, no. We don't count or keep track of the source per se. So it is capped at $14,000 a year per all areas. If it's a for example, payroll income, then that still count as earned income. That's outside of our ABLE program, but that could impact your benefits. But other than that, we don't look at where contributions are coming from.
Can I add something to that, please?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So as long as the funds being deposited into the ABLE account never touch your fingers, meaning you've never had access. If it's a direct contribution to the ABLE account, it would not be counted as income. However, if the check is made out to you, you deposit those funds and then make the deposit into the ABLE account, the monies that you're depositing could potentially be counted as income or a resource depending upon the amount of time between you receiving the funds and making the deposit. So if you receive the funds, make the deposit for the month that you have the funds, it's income because you had access to that money prior to making the contribution. If you retain those funds for, say you received them in June and you retained them through July, then those funds are going to be counted as a resource towards you prior to making the deposit into the ABLE account. So you could potentially lose eligibility. John and I discussed this at a previous presentation, and we both agree that it's best just to have someone make the contribution directly to the ABLE account. and that way it doesn't count as income or resources against you or your SSI eligibility.
And that's a great point, Elizabeth. And we do have options where you can do a direct, we have a secure lockbox where you can send in checks that way. We also have a gifting portal that individuals can set up and allow people to do electronic transfers online. And those resources are available under your account. So there are ways to not have funds go to that individual first, but directly to the ABLE account. Another question is who will submit the monthly data to SSI? So that's the states, the various state ABLE programs. Our program is required on a monthly basis to submit the information to Social Security. However, and Elizabeth could probably speak to this, if you do have an ABLE account and receiving SSI, if you're making electronic transfers to your checking account and you're retaining those, I'm assuming, Elizabeth, do you know, or you may not know, is Social Security want us to be proactive in reporting that, or wait for them to reach out to you?
We want to know once an ABLE account is open. That gives us a diary that will follow up to verify both deposits and distributions from the ABLE accounts. We are looking at the qualified disability expenses, both non-housing and housing. We're also looking for retained distributions. Of course, if you're pulling money out, the policy covers that as long as you're using the funds, it's not going to count against you. However, if you use that money for another purpose, it could reduce the amount of SSI benefit that you're entitled to for the month that you retain the distribution. So those are questions. We're still developing. This is a fairly new program. So we're still developing a kind of a best way to handle this. So right now, because we haven't actually started receiving the alerts from the state, we have people reporting, just like if you were to report a change in living arrangement, if you move from one place to another, or if you went to work or you stopped working, both for the beneficiary and parents, those are items that we would need to know because it could potentially affect eligibility.
Great, thank you for that in-depth answer. Here's another question I have. Does the Florida program have a specific financial institution that the individual has to use? No. So the way our program is set up, it's all online. We have we have 7 different investment options, but they're made up of 4 underlying options. One is a Florida money market account called Florida Prime. It's basically the state's money market account. We also have 2 options that are ran by Vanguard, and then we have another option by BlackRock. So these are actually investment accounts, and that's how the funds will be invested. So you couldn't, for example, go to a brick and mortar local bank to open an ABLE account. You would have to do it online. Another question we received, what happens to the ABLE balance when the individual passes away? So it depends. If the individual was not receiving Medicaid during the time they had an ABLE account, then those funds would go to that person's estate. If the individual was receiving Medicaid and passes away, funds can still be used in that account to pay outstanding qualified disability expenses, including funeral and burial. And then the state may make a claim on the ABLE account. However, if they don't make a claim, it would go to that person's estate as well. So in most cases, it's probably going to go to the estate. We're still getting further information from ACA if they plan to make a claim or not. Another question, let me see. Did the state departments of revenue operate under the same rules as Social Security with respect to ABLE accounts? So the Social Security rules only are applicable to people with SSI. However, we have to follow, the state follows the federal regs and any kind of unique state regulations is how our system is set up. So, for example, the age of onset, the disability severity, those are all federal requirements that we must follow. Somebody asked, when you set up this account, can you have automatic transfers? And that's an easy one. Yes. So you could set that up to do monthly, quarterly, or even yearly. How you want to set up reoccurring contributions into the account. Once again, there is a maximum amount of $14,000 per year. Question: does the Florida program offer a basic savings account? Not at this time. Our least riskiest options are money market account. It's the same thing that many of the local municipalities across the state, as well as the state of Florida, uses. So it's a low bearing account, but it's not a savings account as you would imagine you would get from like a banking product. For additional information on our program, including fees, please visit our website. There is just a couple of more questions. Some of them are a little more personal, so we'll reach out to those individuals after this webinar. We just wanted to thank everybody for taking time this afternoon to attend our webinar, as well as to ask questions. Once again, for more information or to connect with ABLE United, you can visit our website, ableunited.com. You can also contact our customer service via email, customerservice@ableunited.com, or you can reach them by phone Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 1-888-524-ABLE. That's 1-888-524-2253. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/ABLE United. There you can like us and follow us and also see what upcoming webinars are happening. And feel free to ask us questions there as well. Once again, there will be a follow-up one-question survey after this. If you could take the time to answer that, that would be very appreciative. Once again, we'll reach back out to those individuals that had questions that were unanswered. I especially want to thank Elizabeth for taking the time this afternoon, and Social Security Administration just for speaking with us, and to Floridians about ABLE accounts and SSI rules. And then remember, ABLE United makes it possible to save for a better life experience. Thank you all for attending. Have a great day.